Get home from school, turn on my TV. Who are these friends staring right back at me? Now that we're older, why don't you come over and go back in time with me? 90s babies nostalgia.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jessica, and this is 90s Babies Nostalgia, where two 90s babies rewatch and sometimes watch for the first time iconic entertainment from the early 2000s.
Just to be clear, we are not sponsored by nor affiliated with anything one that we talk about ever, unless otherwise stated. We just really like talking about TV and TV movies. And today we are talking about Vacation
Vacation with Derek.
Derek. This is a 2011 made for TV movie spin-off of Life with Derek that came out after the show finished. If you don't know much about Life with Derek, go back and listen because we have covered the entire series. Before we get into it, Jess, what have you been enjoying lately?
Well, in all transparency, we are recording this the weekend after the election in the US. And so I would argue I'm not enjoying much.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have been doing stuff as a distraction. And one of my favorite things, obviously, is music. So I'm going to shout out an artist that I've shouted out before, one of my favorite political artists, specifically his album that came out in 2020, but I'm gonna shout out Grandson's album Death of an Optimist. In general, it's a beautiful political piece from beginning to end. The album is gorgeous. It's about someone who is like very boisterous and optimistic in their want for change. And that kind of comes to a halt and they feel defeated, but they find a way to work past it. It's a great, great album. It was very real for when he released it in 2020, and it feels even more real now. And I've been loving it, along with other things, but that's the main thing I would say. I've listened to it at least 3 times this week.
Yeah. Art is important in times like
Yes,
this. Yeah.
definitely. What have you been enjoying?
Oh, similarly, therapy, civil unrest, whatever glitch in German Amazon Echoes has made our Halloween Town episode very heavily downloaded. Just like the most random thing. Grey's Anatomy, I'm on the plane crash plot line, so that's really enjoyable. But if I want to give like a tangible answer, tangible because I
Mhm.
can pick it up, I did recently finish this cute little novella called Women by Chloe Caldwell. It originally came out in 2014, and it is like the most what you expect of a sapphic relationship depicted in a novella. It follows a writer who's not successful. Like she's had one book published and now she's moving cities and working at a library and like not well off at all. And her tumultuous relationship with an older woman.
Hmm.
And it feels, even though I've never been in a relationship like this, it feels like any women loving women relationship written
Okay.
out on a page. It's just really raw and like natural. I recommend it. And apparently before, because this is the 10th anniversary edition, it first came out in 2014.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, like, it didn't sell super well at first, and it would often be out of print, and the way that it, like, stayed relevant and in the zeitgeist was just, like, sapphic women would give it to their girlfriends and their friends, and then there's, like, the writer has gotten lots of stories from readers about how they lost their copy in a breakup and stuff like that.
Oh my god. I
Yeah.
love that. All right, we're going to get into Vacation with Derek, but before we start on the summary, I'm going to give a little bit of background. So this was filmed in Northern Ontario, so same area that the show was filmed, in fall of 2009. It aired on the Family Channel first in June of 2010 and then aired not quite a year later in March of 2011 on Disney Channel. It was directed by Michael McGowan, who us as Americans wouldn't really recognize him for anything, but he is a very well-known like Canadian filmmaker. And Daphne Ballin, who was the same writer, so Daphne wrote and directed the movie. Daphne also was the writer on Life with Derek, as well as I Was a Sixth Grade Alien, and is comes back to write on Life with Luca as well. Surprisingly, you cannot find a lot of information on how or why this movie was made. I didn't really care before I watched it, and then I watched it, which we'll get into. And then I was like, who approved this? Why did we make this? And I wanted to know, and didn't really find a lot of answers.
I too was a little disappointed at the lack of background information, not because I needed answers, but because I wanted answers.
Yes.
Because it's not even that I don't think it should have been made. It's just like I need to know how it was made. I
Yeah.
need to understand.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
This is a feeling we have a lot these days, is we really need to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And you'll understand with us, guys. Yeah. Getting into
This
our
episode is it's gonna be a doozy, y'all. A doozy. I'm just preparing you, but it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, if you need an indication as to what kind of made-for-TV movie this is, we watched it on YouTube because it is up on YouTube and it's actually a better quality than the show was on streaming, but
Yeah.
the movie does not exist on streaming, at least not in America, and we understood that after
Yep.
watching why that might be the case. So, I don't recommend watching the movie. Spoiler, I don't recommend watching it, but I do recommend listening to our episode to understand why we don't recommend watching it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Oh my goodness. Okay. Getting into the actors, I'm not going to touch on everyone because a lot of this we already covered in our Life with Derek episode. So, in addition to the Venturi McDonald family, we have a few additions in this movie, including Felicia, who is played by Kate Trotter. Felicia is Nora's mom, Lizzie and Casey's grandma, and she owns this gorgeous lakefront
Lodge.
lodge. She is a Canadian actress of the 90s, like very, very well known Canadian actress of the 90s. And then more recently, she's done stuff here and there, but she's been in a lot of Hallmark movies in the last few years.
We get Nicholas Archambault. Archambault. I don't know. It's French and it has a lot of letters because he's from Quebec. And he plays Jesse, a waiter at the lodge who's into Casey and also is a dancer. And why is he a dancer, you ask? Because Nicholas, aka Nico, was the winner of the first season of So You Think You Can Dance Canada in 2008, a couple years before this movie was made. And when I looked that up halfway through the movie, it made a lot of sense.
Yep. Then we get Al Sapienza, who plays Doug Dumbarton. He's like an evil rich guy who wants to tear down the lodge and turn everything into a resort. Like he's that kind of, I don't know, trademark character that's in to ruin everything as it is because he's rich and just wants everything his way. This is an actor who, if you saw his face, you'd be like, I've seen that face in other things, because he's literally done one episode of everything. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. His credits were 283 credits long for all of his acting work on IMDb. And he's
Wow.
not that old to have almost 300 credits. Like, he literally has just done one episode of everything ever.
Respect. That's a lot of auditions that he got.
Honestly, he's probably making more money than some of these names that we would consider more well known because of just how booked and busy he's kept.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get Kristen Gutowski as Roxy Dunbarton, Doug's daughter, and just a hot generic girl that Derek is into. She was in Beaver Falls, The Vampire Diaries, The Handmaid's Tale, and Chicago Fire. Did I know any of that? No. Have I seen? Well, I've seen one of those things. I've seen one out of the four. I've seen all of Handmaid's Tale. Could not have recognized this person. She looks and acts so generically. Was that rude? Oh well. I'm in a mood, guys. I'm gonna try to perk up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I feel like I'm in this same mood, but on the silly spectrum because I'm just like, what was this 90-minute movie? That Amanda and I both were like, we're reworking the schedule. We figured out some fun stuff for the winter holidays, which we're excited about. Like, we had a planning session, we got things going, but we're like, oh, we'll just throw in Vacation with Derek because we knew we wanted to cover it. Neither of us had seen it. And then I watched it before she did, and I was like, what did we sign ourselves up for? Like,
I think my mood is more like related to the current goings on in the world of like, what the hell are we doing? Like sitting here for the next couple of hours talking about this shitty ass Canadian made for TV movie when like the world is on fire. Like, it's
mhm,
actually just absurd. It's like Dadaism, like it's absurd art. Not that you could call this podcast art in this particular moment, although maybe this episode will be art in a misunderstood MoMA type of way, you know?
mhm.
Anything's art. Anyway, we're gonna get into the summary, guys. We are getting into the summary and you're gonna enjoy it. I promise. I promise, no matter what kind of start we've gotten off to, you are going to enjoy this summary. Okay?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So Casey and Lizzie are going on a summer vacation to stay with Nora's mom, Felicia, at her lodge. And George ends up answering a phone call and interprets Felicia's, oh, the grandchildren can come stay at the lodge, which Felicia explicitly meant Casey and Lizzie, as all of the grandchildren. So the entire Venturi McDonald family goes on a family vacation to the lodge. And also at this point, Nora's like very, very pregnant, like about to pop pregnant. Like she has a belly.
And also, she and George are not on this vacation. They drop off their 5 kids and say, bye, we're going to Montreal.
And as they're dropping off the kids, Nora gets out of the car. Of course, has she told Felicia she's pregnant? Nope. So that the vacation really starts off strong. Felicia's upset. And she's even more upset that all of George's children are also tagging along.
A little background on Felicia. Apparently, she's very stubborn. She's very uptight and traditional or conservative. She doesn't believe in divorce. Even though her husband divorced her 20 years ago, she doesn't believe in it. And so she's never accepted George and his kids. So she's really appalled by all of this.
That evening, every single evening, actually, at the lodge, they have dinner at a set time. At dinner, Felicia's like super annoyed with the Venturi children because they're just being Edwin and Derek and Marty. And Felicia hates it. And then we see Casey making eyes with Jesse, the waiter. And then later on, Casey and Derek are dancing. But then this is where this movie takes a turn, guys. It takes a turn from the beginning, but this is where it takes a turn and gets a little wacky. Jesse, the waiter, sees Casey dancing with Derek and how Derek doesn't really know how to dance and like jumps in and is like, oh, I'll dance with you. And then they have an entire choreographed dance number.
The first of many.
Mm-hmm.
So Derek and Edwin are about to leave. They wanted to leave before, but Casey stole the car keys, so they couldn't leave. But Felicia very graciously offers to buy them bus tickets. And this upsets Marty and Lizzie. Casey, of course, is like, nah, go away. I don't care. There's this really dramatic scene where Derek is dangling Marty over the lake in the middle of the night, like he's gonna fucking drop her in. I don't know why, but she's also upset about him leaving in this moment. And also Lizzie is like, if you go, then my grandma wins because then you're just proving her point that the Venturi suck. And also Casey wants you to go. And this really turns Derek's mind around and he's like, we have to stay and prove these bitches wrong. So he decides that he and Edwin are staying. Felicia doesn't love that. But the next day, Derek sees a hot girl on a boat. And Felicia also doesn't love that because who else is on the boat? Her dad. And this is the guy that wants to buy the lodge and turn it into a resort. And Felicia's like, of course you like them.
Mm.
So Derek canoes over to their house across the lake because he's creepy.
Yeah, very creepy. While all this is happening, more things happen, and Marty and Lizzie go over to the marsh, which is like connected to this lake, and they're bird watching and they make friends and they're just enjoying life. And Derek flips over Edwin, who is canoeing in the lake because he's jet skiing with Roxy, and he literally does not care that Edwin like fully flips over in this canoe.
I think this is like the next day, by the way. This is like a few days in a row of like Derek hanging out with Roxy, Edwin hanging out with these kids named Ben and Sven, Marty and Lizzie at the marsh. Like everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Casey's studying.
Yes, Casey is studying, but also Casey and Jesse are dancing. And then they all come together for dinner, and Felicia's pissed because everyone is late except for Casey. Derek and Edwin show up and they're late, and then the last people to show up are Marty and Lizzie, and they have a little box that they tuck under the table. Well, what's in that box? It's a snake named Mikey that Marty really fell in love with when they were birdwatching at the marsh. The snake gets out. It gets on Derek's feet. Derek freaks out, flips the table, causes a commotion in the restaurant, and Felicia has had it. Like, she's done.
Let me stand up for my man for 1 second. Derek freaks out, which causes the others to jump up. He doesn't flip the table. Edwin showed up to dinner with his fly down and accidentally zipped the tablecloth into his fly zipper. So when he jumps up, because Derek jumped up, he takes the whole tablecloth with him.
I forgot about that detail. Yes, that is what happened.
No, because I was watching it and I was like, how did they take the whole tablecloth off? All he did was jump up. And then they made that comment. And I was like, oh my God, Edwin.
Yeah. And so after this, Felicia is like, the boys must leave. They have to leave. Derek wants to stay because of Roxy. And so Derek kind of plants a thought in Casey and is like, you need to pick. It's either your grandma or it's us, which is so dramatic. And so then Casey tells her grandma, you know what? If the Venturis have to leave, then I'm leaving too. And so Felicia's like, oh, and you can tell she's a little torn, but she still really does not want the Venturi children there. And then they realize Marty is missing. And when Marty goes missing, Derek jumps into action. He's asking everyone, where's the last time you've seen her? Has Edwin going to like a little watchtower to try to look for her, and he realizes, what would Marty do? Marty would want to return her snake Mikey to where she found him. And so of course Marty's at the marsh. They go and find her and bring her back, and after witnessing all of this happen, Felicia changes her mind and is like, okay, I guess you guys can stay.
Derek is still hanging out with Roxy. He's still hanging out with her, but now Grandma Felicia has gotten into his brain a little bit. So he's kind of trying to dig for intel from her and her pops about what's going on. He sees like plans that are being made with a surveyor and learns that he's going to drain the marsh to create this resort that yachts can drive in, float. What do yachts do? What do boats do? Do they drive? They don't float, they don't swim. What do they do?
I was gonna say motor, but that's not right.
Steer? I guess? Whatever boats do. He's gonna drain the marsh.
I think boats drive. They don't drive. They definitely don't drive.
Like planes fly and cars drive. And trains, I don't know what trains do either. Trains run? Trains run, maybe? And boats also run, I'm gonna say. And boats run. So he's gonna drain the marsh so that yachts can run on the lake.
Yep.
And create this big resort. And so he takes this back to his family, and what's her face? Felicia says that he tried already to develop the marshland but was denied it. And then she makes a call and finds out he appealed the deny. So now she's waiting to find out. She should find out by the end of the week whether or not his appeal goes through. And so Lizzie, little environmental queen, is like, okay, we need to host a rally. We need to save the marsh. And Casey's like, you're being unrealistic. And she's like, kid power. So now we get many montages of the whole gang of 5 kids organizing a rally that's not really a rally. It's a talent show, kind of, to save the marsh.
Do you want me to take over?
I felt like I left off at a really good point and you could take over from there.
Okay. So while Lizzie's planning her event and everything is going off and everyone is getting riled up about saving the marsh, Felicia gets a call that the appeal went through and that Doug will be able to drain the marsh and build the resort that he wants. She feels defeated, so she agrees to sell. When she agrees to sell later on, she's having a conversation with Casey, and she tells the children that she agreed to sell. And Casey and her kind of have a back and forth. She tells Casey that she's turning into Nora and that she's not focusing on like the serious things in life or the things that she should be focusing on. And Casey's like, okay, well, you also were never there for us growing up. Like, you haven't tried to make an effort to be part of our family now that mom married George. Like, you haven't even tried to get to know Derek and Edwin and Marty. And after this conversation, Casey writes a letter in the morning and leaves to take a bus home because she's like, I said some things that I probably shouldn't have said, and I just want to leave. At the same time, with Casey leaving and Felicia agreeing to sell, Lizzie is feeling very defeated about the Save the Marsh event, and so she's about to give up on the event as well.
Yeah, because there's no marsh left to save.
Mm-hmm.
But then they realize that they have a secret weapon, and that is Felicia's archenemy, George Venturi, their lawyer father, who worked on civil cases in the show, but apparently also kind of works on environment stuff. So Edwin makes a call to George, and George is like, this is impossible, but fine, whatever. Derek tells Felicia to go to the bus station because maybe Casey's bus didn't leave yet, and they go and make up. And also Derek goes to fish around and ask Roxy for this commissioned report that her grandfather commissioned about the environment of the wetlands and all of the species that live there generations ago that she doesn't actually know about until this very moment, and yet somehow also says she wouldn't give it to him, but also gives it to him because they need to prove the importance of the marsh.
As the Save the Marsh rally is about to kick off, Dumbarton shows up to the event to get the paperwork signed. Meanwhile, outside, they're all like, we need George to show up. Like, he needs to hurry up. Like, she is about to sign. We need to stall Felicia. And the pen is about to touch paper, and George bursts in and is like, don't sign the contract. I got an injunction. Stop all development. And they celebrate by still hosting the event. Jesse and Casey perform this dance that they've been working on the entire time. We didn't really mention it all that much because, I mean, you've just listened to this plot. That's why we didn't mention it all that much. And of course, there's a famous choreographer in the audience who is the son of one of the people who were staying at the lodge who also performed at this event. And he is so blown away by Jesse and Casey that he offers them both parts in his show in New York City. And so Casey debates taking a year off from college, deferring for a year, and Felicia encourages her to do so.
And then they're all dancing again in the middle of the lodge, community hall, whatever. And Casey and Jesse kiss. Also, Lizzie kisses another guy on the dock. That we'll get into that kind of. And Casey and Jesse kiss, and then Derek pulls her away to dance with her. And that's the movie, except the credits roll and we get blooper scenes. And then at the end of the credits, we get a 1 year later, and everyone is back at the lodge and taking a family photo. And now there's a baby, and his name is Simon. And now we're done. That's the movie.
That's the movie.
And it's like 3 movies in one. Did you catch that? It's giving, honestly, it's giving Cheaper by the Dozen, which I realized as we were finishing. Like, I kind of get why there was so much going on because there's so many players involved. But it was still a lot.
It's a lot, and we'll get into it more in our what we didn't like section. But
But
before we
first,
do that, we are going to talk about what we did like. And I wrote this as a question mark because I don't actually know if I liked it, but I didn't dislike it. It just was a big change. Lizzie's hair is like blonde, but purple, but also dark.
also an asymmetrical cut. like a
Yeah.
very asymmetrical cut.
Yeah, and the only which I did not look into this at all, so I don't know if this is fact, but the only thing that I could see is I'm like, has the actor started on Degrassi yet? And is that the reason for the like drastic hair change?
I was also wondering that. I think the actress also likes her hair and playing with it, because I think, like, after playing a trans man on Degrassi for years, she was, like, so happy to grow her hair out again and stuff, and I think she just, like, likes an edgier style. It was kind of weird for Lizzie, but I didn't hate it. It didn't not work, but didn't work
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone's hair is different. Casey's blonde now. Derek has some, like, Elvis-ass looking hair.
Yeah.
It drove me nuts. It drove me nuts the whole time.
Yeah, it also looked dyed, like they dyed it darker or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, everyone's wardrobe was, like, very 2010. Like, all of the strappy dresses and tank tops, and also, at one point, Casey is dancing in these, like, 3-inch cork wedge sandals,
Yep.
which was, like, insane. I think of all of these things, Lizzie's hair was the least offensive to me, despite the fact that it was, like, the most glaring.
Yeah, it just felt like it didn't fit the character of the show. Like, I don't know if Lizzie from the 4 seasons of Life with Derek would dye her hair like that.
I could see her getting purple in her hair. I
Yeah.
couldn't see her dyeing it bleach blonde or caring that much.
Yeah, totally. The other big difference is obviously Marty being the youngest member, every single new season and now with the movie, anything where there's a gap of time, how much older she looks just is like it feels like she grew up 4 years even though she really didn't. But she seemed so much older to me in this movie, like so much.
She is fully in her tween era,
Yeah.
and it's jarring.
Yes.
And at the very, very beginning, when we just see Casey and Derek, I'm like, if it weren't for Casey, whatever. Derek looks like he could be Derek from kind of the start of the show. Like, I'm ambiguous about his age because his hair is weird. And then you see Marty, and you're like, oh no, this was filmed like 4 years after the show. It wasn't, but it feels like it was
It does. Yeah.
because she looks so much older.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I wrote this that Derek has dice hanging on his rear view mirror in his car, and I just felt that that felt right. It felt like a good character choice. Amanda wrote that this also was in the show. I don't remember seeing it in the show, but that makes sense that they kept it consistent. But I feel like Derek would have those like fuzzy big dice hanging in his car.
Yeah, he had the dice in the show. What did confuse me, so at the start of this movie, we didn't mention Casey and Derek drive to the lodge together as opposed to everyone else is in another car because big family, and he's supposed to be driving the Prince, is he not? He's supposed to be driving the old car, which we've seen in the show, but instead he's driving this, like, I don't know, like, Civic Volvo kinda crappy
Mm-hmm.
green car that has flowers painted on the side of it. I can't see Derek Venturi driving a car with flowers painted on the side of it.
Yeah, that part does not check out. Also, I'm like, is it a shared car? Like Derek and Casey both share it, and that's why there's flowers on it. Yeah, I'm just trying to come up with reasons.
Yeah, historically, they do share a car, but I don't think Casey would put I think it's, like, an old family car maybe, that's why, but I think they would paint over it. I finally realized that if Jess is Casey, I, Amanda, am Derek,
Okay.
because I am also very sassy and overly competitive and don't
Mm.
like when my ego is challenged, and I realized this in a moment that I wrote down in our quotes when he had a comeback as soon as he met Felicia, and I was just like, "Yep, that is unfortunately me." Except I'm not as cool as him, but that's okay.
I don't know. Is he really that cool?
Okay, I'm not as confident as him, and that's not okay.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. There is this point where Edwin lectures Derek in the same manner that Derek would lecture him in the show. I can't remember the specific reason I wrote this down, but I know there's moments where like Edwin kind of is like pushing Derek to want to stay and the reasons they should stay, and is kind of adding into the whole like, well, if we leave, we're letting Felicia win. And the way that Edwin is going about it is just very like he learned this style from Derek.
Almost every one of those instances, though, Edwin is the one that's like, no, we should be leaving.
Yeah.
When the girls convince Derek to stay, Edwin's mad because he wants to leave. And at the beginning, when Casey and Derek show up late, Edwin is like, there's no TVs in the room. There's no internet access. We've stepped into some fucking time warp. He's walking down the, like, not even road, gravel path-ish with
Yeah.
his suitcase and his pillow in his arms, being like, we have to get the heck out of here. And he has a monologue.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
But it is similar to Derek. He has learned, and we have seen the siblings grow up. Also with Lizzie being like, knowing exactly what to say to make Derek stay. We
Yeah.
kept some of the character growth.
Yeah, I think the character growth and like the how in some ways they have kind of become like one another, and Lizzie and Edwin are stepping into their roles as now being the oldest siblings with Casey and Derek on their way out. Like that kind of growth and transition in the characters we did keep in the movie, which was nice. There's this point at the beginning of the movie where Derek is coming out to, I'm pretty sure, either say hi or maybe complain to Felicia.
He's bringing her orange juice when they decide to stay the first time.
Okay, he's trying to make her like him. She is having her regular morning skinny dip.
Yep. And I could tell that woman was skinny dipping before she said it.
Oh, me too. It was very obvious.
I know you put this in favorite moments, and I guess it kind of was, but I also am like very confused and concerned because unless you have a waiver that everyone is signing, why are you, the owner and proprietor of this like hospitality establishment, skinny dipping every morning in a public lake where anyone can walk up on you?
Yeah, the only thing is I'm like, is she doing this at 5 a.m.? But the sun is up when she's doing it, so no, she's not. But yes, I agree when you think that this is a lodge in which she is paying guests staying there to enjoy their summer, it is completely inappropriate that she would be skinny dipping. Like, it's not okay.
It's not an adult-only lodge.
No.
If she were in a private area, sure, but if Derek can find her, and it's not 5 a.m. because Derek wouldn't be up at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was just like, what? But I also relate a lot to Felicia in that she's been single for a long time. She's an older woman. All she cares about is her business and has like a very particular way of life that she enjoys living. And like, I do see myself as a woman like that when I grow up. So I don't blame her exactly, but like find a private area, you know?
Yeah.
Don't be flashing people without their consent.
Yeah, and you have to think she's run into issues with this if this is like a regular behavior of hers.
You would think. And yet, this is not a side plot. This is just a character trait of Edwin's. This is not a side plot, Jess.
It comes up enough that I'm classifying it as a side plot. There's a recurring bit, I guess you would say. It's not a plot. It's a bit. There's a recurring bit that Edwin farts in his sleep the entire movie. And I just like, one, it's hilariously dumb. I love it because it's dumb. It's stupid. It's mostly harmless because Edwin doesn't really care. He's pretty shameless about it. But also, like, was this ever in the show? Like, this feels like all the kids are like, oh my gosh, Edwin farts in his sleep. And he's like, no, I don't. But I'm like, if this is something they all know he does and they don't want to sleep with him, like, why was this not in the show? It feels like such a random bit to throw in.
It was in the show. It was.
Oh, it was. Okay. That makes me feel better.
I don't know if you remember, like, the last season especially, he's very much characterized as, like, a gassy kid that has issues with, like, beans and various things. He farts a lot. And then also in the episode where they take the road trip that goes really terribly wrong and they end up in that, like, too small hotel room, he definitely farts in his sleep.
Yes.
So I actually really liked that this was included because I felt like this movie was like so different from the show in a lot of ways. So for them to keep in these certain elements of the characters from the show, like that he's really gassy and that Lizzie really likes the environment, felt like, okay, these are the same characters. This is the same universe.
Yeah, I forgot about that, but now you mentioning the road trip episode, I'm like, oh my god, yes, I forgot that that was a trait of his. But I just thought it was funny that it came up so many times during the movie.
Yes, it did, because they have to sleep in bunk beds, and no one wants to sleep above Edwin. And
Mm-mm.
every night there's a fart, and then he immediately goes, "Wasn't me." Which also, like, dude, you're supposed to be asleep, but whatever.
A thing I appreciated is, as terrible and stubborn and set in her ways that Felicia is, she does come around. And I feel like I appreciated that not only did she come around, you see her open herself up to the Venturi children, but there's also this moment where she apologizes to George and Nora about not going to their wedding, and it actually felt like a sincere apology.
I agree. I think she's generally a pretty terrible person, but the 2 times that she apologizes, first to Casey at the bus stop and then later to George and Nora after the whole shebang, they do feel like very sincere apologies.
Yeah, like she actually means it and she feels deeply sorry. Like she realizes in retrospect that like her behavior was inappropriate. And I liked that. It humanized her a little bit.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh my god. When they are getting ready for this Save the Marsh rally, I swear to you, Lizzie is using an industrial stapler to staple up these flyers. I understand that this is a very random thing to include in the notes, but I was so confused. I'm like, why is she not using tape like normal people?
Oh, okay. I was wondering why you were confused because I'm like, yeah, you would need an industrial stapler to put it up. You can't use a regular one, it would break. But I mean, if it's staples versus tape, yeah, she should be using like masking tape or something.
Yeah, like think about around your apartment, like when people put up like missing dog or found dog or whatever it is,
Mhm.
flyers, it's always taped or, yard sale this way. No one is fucking stapling it.
Would staples work better on a wooden pole? I mean, obviously on a metal pole you would have to tape, but would staples work better on a metal pole? Like maybe tape doesn't stick that well to wood?
Yeah, I still feel like it's vandalism. I don't know why, but I don't like it.
Well,
So
it's all vandalism.
yeah, but the other stuff you could remove, but it's like if you rip off that paper, those giant freaking staples are now living in that pole for the rest of time.
There's staple removers. Also, can I just remind you that we are in the what we like about the movie section?
Okay, I more put this as like what we like slash favorite moments. Which I would say this is a moment that stood out for me. It's not something I didn't love. I just thought it was weird.
Okay,
The
fair
the
enough.
wrong choice of apparatus, I think.
Would not be the way you would distribute flyers. Understood.
Correct. I feel like these are all mine. the
They
next
are. They
the next
are.
the next one is Amanda. I have to say, I'm here to defend Felicia a little bit. As Amanda said, she's terrible. And I agree, she's terrible. And there's not a lot of redeeming moments. But one of the big things that the girls keep bringing up, specifically Casey, is like, you've never came to see us. You've never made an effort to be part of our family since George was part of it. And all these things are valid points that they are bringing up. However, this woman also works in hospitality. She is running a small business. It is her lodge. Like, who is going to be there? She's not there to greet the guests and take care of everything. Like, she is a busy woman, and hospitality is no joke.
See, I didn't even hear the part about you're not around because I was too focused on the you've never accepted George and the whole marriage and kids thing, which feels like an unforgivable character trait. So I think the fact that she's like stuck in her lodge is a little negligible. I'd also like to point out that she is in Ontario at a lakefront lodge, which definitely has a down season when she could be traveling to see her grandkids.
Oh, because it's probably closed in the winter.
Yeah, probably.
Mm. Okay. I take that makes
But
sense.
I understand your point. She is a very busy independent woman.
Yeah, like
And again, I feel like I'm going to be a Felicia when I grow up, but I still see her as like a pretty terrible character where I was like,
oh yeah,
you don't deserve Casey and Nora loving you the way that they do.
oh absolutely not. This woman is not a good woman, and she's not a good grandmother, and like very obviously was not a good mom either. And like really probably like Nora is very damaged by her. Like she's not a good woman.
Some of the stuff she was saying, I was like, this is harsher than what I'm going like working through in therapy right now.
Yeah. It's like bad.
My one thing that I have to talk about that I thought was, I don't know, interesting-ish was that halfway through this movie when it became about like the resort versus the lodge, I was like, are we watching the plot of Camp Rock 2? And which one came first? I was going to ask, do you think that this inspired Camp Rock 2? And then I found out Camp Rock 2 came out in 2010 or 2008. I think it was 2010. It was before this one by a short time. And also halfway through the movie when we saw more of the set, I thought this could be the place where they filmed Camp Rock. Like I remember them saying they filmed it in Canada. So then I looked it up. It's not the place where they filmed Camp Rock, but it is an hour and a half away from the place where they filmed Camp Rock. They're both in Ontario near Algonquin National Park. This lodge is not in the park. It's further south. The other one is actually further north, in the park, but which is a very, very large national park in Ontario. But I just found it interesting. And do we think maybe the production teams were the same because they were produced so close together? And were they like, dude, is this the same movie but like dance instead of singing?
I think they were one after another because based on this, Camp Rock 2 came out September 3rd of 2010. And this movie, even though it didn't come out on Disney Channel until 2010, it premiered on Family Channel almost an entire year prior. So this movie did come before.
They probably even had production overlaps, or very likely could have.
Yeah, very interesting. I like blackout Camp Rock 2 from my brain, but they are basically the same movie.
Yeah. And also revolve in these like camps in the woods that are built on lakes, which like obviously is a fairly common thing, but still just I was like, is this the same place? No, but very similar and close
Similar.
by. And I was proud of myself, guys, because as little information as you can find about this movie online, you can find where it was filmed on IMDb if you scroll far enough down past the silly, silly reviews. Getting into things that we don't love as much as if we haven't already discussed. Guys, it's not just going to be us shitting, it's going to be us shitting in a funny way. You know? I could have chosen better words. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. Keep going. Keep rolling with us. Are you having a good time? I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
Do I sound like I'm on drugs? A little bit.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not bringing the energy that Amanda's bringing. I'm like not negative. This movie is just like a bad TV movie. Like, it's not like the worst thing I've ever watched in my life. I didn't want to turn it off. It's just like hilariously bad. Like,
I didn't see, the thing is, I not only didn't hate it, I didn't necessarily think it was bad. I just think that going through all of the things, it sounds crazier and crazier.
It was crazy. Watching it, I was like, this is crazy. And then writing the notes, I was like, it validated me. And then when Amanda texted me that she was watching it and she was like, Jess, this is wild. I was like, I feel very validated in my own personal experience of watching it. So we have to start with this intro scene. The intro scene with the like intro credits and the song was like a paper doll style animation. Would you describe it differently? I don't really know.
It was like a claymation, wasn't it?
Yeah, they almost looked like paper dolls. Like
it was weird is what it was, and it was absolutely nothing like the intro to the show.
No, and the song made my head hurt. It felt like it was piercing my brain. I hated it.
I cannot recall it at all. It wasn't catchy in the slightest. It was a boring ass song with a weird ass intro that felt like I was not watching a Life with Derek production. I didn't like it. My very first note when watching it was, what the fuck is this intro?
Me too. I was like, I don't understand. The style is weird. The song is bad. Doesn't feel like Life with Derek at all.
And this brings me into, I generally hate made-for-TV movies based off of TV shows. I will watch them and appreciate them for what they are, but in the realm of things that I like and dislike, this goes in the dislike pile, okay? It's Vacation with Derek, is Wizards of Waverly Place. I don't even really I don't like the Wizards movie that much. Sue me. I don't even really like Hannah Montana the movie that much. I do like Lizzie McGuire the movie, but that's because I don't even really associate it with the show because it's not the same. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, I realized 2 out of the ones that I just said were made for theaters, whatever. I don't like even Stevens the movie that much either, okay? There are other examples. I just can't think of them. So, can you okay, I don't like them because the reason I'm watching them is that I enjoyed this show that had whatever charm it had. And while the directors and writers may or may not be the same, the production quality is always so different. It visually looks different. The budget has changed, the equipment has changed, the way that they edit it has changed. And it starts off with that fuck ass intro, and then immediately they're hanging out in a yard that we have never seen. And the outside of the house looks not really like the outside of the house that we've seen before. And I'm
No,
just like, this doesn't. And then also, on top of that, all the characters having new hairstyles and whatnot. Like, I need something to feel similar, and none of it did.
agreed. It was very like strange. And so we know the writer is the same. We don't know if the whole writing team is the same. My guess is no, but the main writer, Daphne, is the same. The directors are different. This director did not direct any of the episodes of Life with Derek, which makes sense. Normally, movie directors are different compared to TV show director. But yeah, it just is weird and off putting, and it doesn't feel like the same show because the production is so different.
Yeah, and I think that that's often the case is that the budget is increased, right? The amount of money that you have to make a 90-minute movie versus 20, 30-minute episodes is way different. To me, I think a lot of it comes down to the style of like suddenly the colors are vibrant. The saturation is different, the contrast is up, things like that that I understand it's because you have money for better editing and equipment and stuff. It tonally makes it feel like a very different project.
Yeah.
And this brings me into other thing that confuse me. Timeline confused. So confused. This
Mhm.
timeline makes no goddamn sense.
Mhm.
Were you also confused? Because I was
Mhm.
constant. Okay. So at the beginning, we know that it's summer break before they go to uni. We don't know that they haven't gone to uni, though. I assumed that maybe this was like they're a couple years into uni. Did it cross my mind that Nora's still pregnant? Absolutely not. I forgot about that and that wouldn't make sense. But Nora mentions at the beginning that they've been a blended family for 4 years. But didn't wasn't Casey like 15 when they first came? Maybe she was 14. I guess that would work that they were 18, but I thought she was 15. And also, like high school, I checked. You know what I did? I went on Wikipedia and looked at high schools or secondary schools, as they're calling Canada, in London, Ontario. And I opened the wiki page for every single secondary school in London, Ontario, and almost all of them are grades 9 through 12. And why did I do that? Because it differs based on the county in
Mm.
Canada. So, grades 9 through 12, like a normal American high school, which would be 14 to 18. And now Edwin is 15, but he still hasn't started high school, and Casey hasn't started uni. And also, if this is right off of the show, then like fuck Truman and Emily, I guess, because they both have love interests and don't ever mention them and like don't think about them at all. And Nora was like just pregnant at the start of the summer, at the end of the show, and now she's like ready to burst, which it would only be a couple months later. Like that wouldn't make sense. I'm
Mm-mm.
just confused.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because even if Nora and George waited to tell the kids until she was past her first trimester, which based on the events we see in the show doesn't seem like she did, but let's say she waited those 3 months and then that's when they told the kids, still, based on the timeline of them jumping into summer, she would still be in her second trimester. So she would barely be starting to show. Most women don't show until their third trimester. So it's like, it makes no sense. No sense.
Whereas, for context, guys, she's so pregnant that at the end
So
of the
pregnant.
episode or at the end of the movie, I thought she might go into labor.
Yes, me too. I was like, is her water about to break? Like, what is
That
happening?
is one of my notes later down. Because that's how crazy this movie was, that I was like, I would not be surprised if in this climactic moment Nora's water broke and she's that pregnant. And so I'm just really confused about the timeline. I feel like it should have been like a couple years later, but whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Jumping off of that, this entire movie, even though Amanda said she doesn't think it's bad, I'm gonna stand and say it's bad. This entire movie is pretty bad, but to me, especially the first 50 minutes, it just felt like they were trying to do so much. Like, you got the big mix up of like, oh, we didn't actually mean all of the grandchildren. And you had all the back and forth of like, are they going to stay? Are they going to leave? Are they going to stay? Are they going to leave? Marty goes missing. And then, oh no, the marsh is going to be taken over. Like, they are doing so much in these 50 minutes that the entire time I was like, I don't know what the plot is. Like, what is the plot? And where are we driving to? Because there's just so many different things happening. It was a lot.
I agree. It was a lot, and it was at times too much, but I've come to terms with it after sleeping on it because I watched it just last night. And the reason I've come to terms with it is that that's life, baby. There's a lot happening at once. You can't control when your evil step grandmother gets involved and then also they're trying to take over her lodge. I'm good with the two concurrent plots of she's coming to terms with her daughter's second marriage and also they're trying to save the marshland. I'm okay with that. What feels like too much is when you add in all of those fuck ass side characters that don't matter. However, knowing the Venturi McDonald kids as I do, if they were all together at a lodge over the summer, would they be spending any time together? No.
No.
They would be making other friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the spend time together family.
Mm-mm.
So they're doing too much, but sometimes life is too much. And this is when I say it kind of feels like a cheaper by the dozen movie.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does.
Cheaper by the half dozen. In the things we didn't need in the first 50 minutes, the last 50 minutes, the any of the 90 minutes that this went on.
The entire movie did not need any of the numerous Casey and Jesse dance scenes. I think we get 4, maybe 5. All of them are entirely unnecessary.
And I gotta say, anytime I have seen Casey dance in both the movie and the show, unless it is a specifically choreographed number, when they clearly were like, oh, Ashley, you can just freestyle. She does the same exact routine every time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. I don't need to see you do that fuck ass backwards cartwheel shit anymore. One of the very first, maybe the second dance scene that we get between
Second
them
one.
is when she sees him in the rehearsal room and she's like, I also have a routine to this song. And he's like, you got to show me. And she's like, I'm so out of practice and so out of shape. I haven't danced in a few months. And then she immediately like stumbles and like sucks ass in like the least realistic way possible. And I'm like, girl,
Mm-hmm.
it's been 3 months. Like at max, it's been 3 months. You can do this. You've been dancing for what, at least a decade? You can do this.
Yeah.
And then there was also this weird thing about how he clams up at auditions. He like lived in New York for a year or two and was trying to make it, but he sucks at auditions. And then they find out that that choreographer is in the crowd and he apparently has no problem performing. And like, that's not how that would work. That's the same thing as an audition if you think it's an audition.
Yeah, also he is like a little nervous in case he has to be like, it's okay, we got this. We've practiced a lot. But it's just like normal encouragement you would need before an audition or a performance. It's not like crazy nerves that he's showing.
No. And in the scene when the choreographer is impressed by him, you see his face a couple of times and he's impressed. Every time that they cut to him looking impressed was when Jesse was doing something that I could do. For instance, when he jumped off a stage. He didn't flip, he didn't do anything fun when he jumped off the stage. He just jumped off the stage. I can jump off a stage, man. Is he a good dancer? Yes, of course. But it's also like when I found out he was the winner of So You Think You Can Dance Canada, it made so much sense because they do that, like, it's enjoyable. But in this movie, it made no sense. The like hip hop modern combo style that
Mhm.
just feels I don't know. It felt very of the time and of So You Think You Can Dance.
Yeah, also very like, is this the time that all the fucking Step Up movies are coming out? Feels
Yes,
very Step Up.
it is that time. And he, after winning So You Think You Can Dance, the first thing he was in was a French Canadian, basically step up movie.
Got it. Checks out.
Jesse looks 35, and he's not. He's only 2 years older than Ashley Leggett. And he looks 35, and I don't care. It's upsetting. And he's not an actor. This man cannot act. He hasn't acted much since. Thank God.
Mm-mm.
Thank the Canadian screens.
The thing that I now remembering, he also my problem with his entire character, besides acting bad, you're a waiter, and there becomes a point where he is waiting on them, and then all we see is him dancing. He's always in the practice room, he's always dancing. I'm like, what is your job? Or what are you getting paid to do, sir?
Yeah, it's like he probably gets lodging and studio space, but also does he get paid? I don't know. Like, he's really not working very much.
No.
No.
Correct. Not normally how those like summer stints at a resort like that would work. That would give you lodging. Like you're working 8 to 10 hour days minimum. But no,
Yeah.
Jesse's alone by himself in the dance studio 8 to 10 hours a day.
This is not about Jesse, but this is tangential to it. Is during that final dance scene, Casey is wearing a black miniskirt with black leggings and black strappy heels, and it's very dated and it's very awful. It's just atrocious. If you're gonna wear black strappy heels, wear tights. Don't wear leggings
Mm.
that cut off and show your fuck ass foot.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't pay attention to the outfit, but yeah, it's not a good look. It doesn't even feel of the time either. It just feels like bad costuming decisions.
Well, I think we wore a lot of leggings in like 2010 to 2013,
But with did we wear them
14.
with strappy heels? I agree with you. We wore leggings under mini skirts, and like that was a bad idea. But
Yes.
did we wear leggings with strappy heels?
No, because we
Yeah.
didn't wear heels. Well, you did actually.
I did wear a lot of heels in high school and college.
Also, anytime that Jesse and Casey are seeing each other across the way, or if there's various times that it happens between characters, there's this like slow-mo with cringe music, and it just that was maybe my least favorite part of this movie was the
Mm.
amount of slow-mo and cringe music when people see each other.
Hmm.
I hate it.
Yeah. I think my least favorite part about this movie is that it was doing entirely too much, yet there was no stakes. There was no stakes. What were the stakes? Like, I didn't even feel that invested in the Marsh plot because there was so much else going on. If they built up the entire movie to be structured around the Marsh from beginning to end, and that was the big thing that I was supposed to be invested in, then maybe I would have cared. But there was so much happening the entire time tangentially that to me there was zero stakes but 1,000 things that I was supposed to be paying attention to, and that I think was its biggest flaw.
I mean, I think that there were stakes because of the marsh and the lodge and the selling of the property, and they mention it pretty early on, but I agree that there were so many things going on that, like, it was hard to really care about anything, and they could have narrowed it down.
Yes, yeah, there are many things they could have gotten rid of, including all of the scenes that Edwin has with his new friends Sven and Ben.
Yep, my least favorite characters of this movie. Well, they're probably tied with Roxy.
Yeah. Yeah, they at least maybe had personality. I don't really know. I don't have positive things to say about them. But what I do have to say is Disney did this thing, or Family Channel, both, did this thing which they constantly do with that like younger sibling or middle sibling that I hate, but they did it with Edwin's friends instead, is immediately Sven and Ben are smitten with Casey. They'll do anything she asks. They don't care that Edwin finds her annoying, that it's Edwin's older sister. They just immediately are like smitten with her, and it's just weird. Weird. Can we just have people like people their age?
What I also find weird about it is, like, okay, whatever, they think she's hot, but they meet her because she comes over to scold Edwin for being reckless, and then they're like, "Well, let's continue being reckless because, like, oh my god, we wouldn't want her to come, like, scold him." Like, but any teenage boy who thought that your older sister was hot would immediately be turned off when she scolds you. They'd be like, God, she's such a
Yes.
fucking nag.
Yes.
Like, that was the least realistic part to me, is that they still liked her after that.
It was unrealistic, and it's just one of those things that we see in every single show we've watched, and I hate it every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What really dated this was okay. Also, I was so confused by Ben and Sven's characters to begin with, because when Edwin meets them, they're playing croquet very normally, and he's like, "Now, what if we played extreme croquet and we like hit the balls against the trees?" And then after that, Edwin does not care about extreme sports, but Ben and Sven are like, "We're doing everything extreme possible, and that includes it's 2010, so we're doing parkour."
Yep.
And is it real parkour? Probably not. Do I know? Do I have any qualifications? No. They call it an obstacle course. They say, oh, parkour is like an obstacle course where you prove what a man you are. And then they run up the underside of a canoe like it's a ramp. It's confusing. It's giving 2010. It's giving 13-year-old boy.
I literally was just like, what? This movie threw in parkour because of course it did? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but I do remember boys who would try to flip off a wall and go, parkour!
Yeah.
In high school. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's not something I'm unfamiliar with.
You can get rid of this if you want, or you can keep it in. I don't care. But you saying that reminded me of one time in college. We were coming home from a Halloween party, and we're all dressed in costumes. And Maureen which is one of my college roommates, is super drunk. And she was just being drunk and didn't want to be around us. And so she starts running to the dorms, jumping over poles, jumping around rails. And every single time she jumped around any of it, she went, parkour, parkour. And she was like so drunk. It was hilarious.
Yeah, that sounds right. That I do, especially first year, which for us was 2012 to 2013, was when you would drunkenly get home back to campus and run around jumping off of things, shouting parkour,
Yep.
because the memory of myself doing that came to mind.
Yep. It just feels very of that time.
Of our side characters, as I mentioned, Ben and Sven probably tied for least favorite with Roxy. Yep, we get a love interest who is so bland. Now, do I like her more or less than Jessie? Also comparable. Also comparable. You know what? Jessie had too much personality for my liking because I did not give a shit about that 35-year-old. Roxy, on the other hand,
don't say that he was not 35. You're spreading lies. He did.
But he looked it.
He did.
And you know what? That man actually has a beautiful head of hair. So why the fuck was he bald in this?
Oh, he has hair. I just assumed he didn't.
I assumed too. And then I Googled him and he has a beautiful head of hair.
What a shame.
So Roxy has zero personality. She's incredibly bland. And maybe it's a little better, but also not. Even when she's taking a stand, she still has no personality. The one thing I like about her is that she kind of looks like Casey.
I'd say the only personality trait they gave her is hot, which is not really a personality trait.
No, it's not.
She doesn't have a personality. I would say her acting is not really that great either. She just really is there to be hot, which just then why did we add her?
Because without her, Derek wouldn't be able to get the plans.
I feel like he could have found a different way. That's a mischievous kid. He could have figured it out. I believe in him.
So true. So true, bestie. Also, what grown man calls his teenage daughter Roxy? And what teenage girl drives around in her dad's boat looking hot? That's a very creepy daughter-father relationship. It made me uncomfortable.
Agreed.
I didn't like it at all. But it does kind of explain her reaction to Derek, because I have a question for you that I wrote while watching this, is if you were on your private lakeshore and a teenage boy, just randomly kayaked onto it and started flirting with you and acting like he knew you or should know you, how would you react?
Well, random boy. I've never seen him before.
Because she has never seen this boy before.
I feel like I'd be pretty creeped out, but also if I was a teenager, if he was particularly hot, I may entertain it for a moment.
For a moment.
Yeah, for a moment. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm over this.
Derek kayaks to their property.
It's creepy.
Lies about being a volleyball court inspector, which she can very clearly tell he's not, and he's lying.
Also, that's not a thing.
I know. And she just goes with it. And then after that, they're spending every day together, and he's in their house and he's kissing her. And I'm like, what? Uh, I would not entertain a boy like this, no matter how hot he was. I would entertain, if, like you said, if he was very, very hot, I might entertain it for a moment. And then I would be like, give me your phone number, now go away. Because get to know me as a person on the side. Don't come into my house. This is trespassing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's highly inappropriate. That's why I'm like, if he was Derek, I would immediately shoo him away and be like, fuck off. But if he was very incredibly hot, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to entertain this, but like, please try to pursue me outside of my own property where I was trying to have alone time.
Yes, the only explanation I could think of is that this girl is very lonely and has a very creepy father.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know boundaries with men and also wants companionship. Now I feel bad for her. All right.
I don't.
Speaking of weird women, Derek calls Felicia his grandma before they even get along well, which I thought was not Derek like.
No, he would call her Felicia.
Yeah. It's like
Mhm.
when he's explaining to Roxy, oh, my grandma owns the lodge. And she's like, that's your grandma? And he's like, well, step grandma. Derek would say step grandma from the beginning, or he would just say, like, I don't know. He wouldn't say my grandma. I don't know. It felt weird. Felt weird.
Maybe to others, I could see a world in which he refers to her as grandma or step grandma, but I feel like to her face, he would just call her Felicia, which I think he does.
Off and on. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that all of the good things were your notes, all the bad things seem to be my notes.
I mean, a good chunk of them were mine.
The scene where Felicia and Casey fight,
This is so valid. So valid.
you know, when Casey like runs off to the bus, she's like, I can't face my grandma after the stuff that I said. The reason that they're fighting is that Casey is dancing. Oh no, she's dancing in the studio with music playing with Derek and Felicia's staff. And Felicia says that she didn't expect Casey to be partying with that crowd.
Mhm.
The crowd in question is her staff that I'm sure she has background checked and knows rather well, as she seems very active on this property. And also, partying is just dancing to music. There's no alcohol, there's
Mm-mm.
no kissing. What?
It's not particularly like loud or obnoxious. They're not like creating any extra noise. Like it is very, very harmless. Also, as you said, this is her staff. She hired them. She has to have some level of trust in them because they're helping her run her lodge.
To refer to them as that crowd? Like, what, are you just being classist now? Is it because they're the help?
Yeah, it's not okay.
In the climax, when they need to get the environmental report to George so he can show the judge, I am just very confused as to how they entered it into the faxer and it went to George's cell phone.
Uh huh.
Like, I'm guessing theoretically in my brain that's trying to make it make sense, like they faxed it to his office and then his secretary scanned it and emailed it to him. That's the
Hmm.
only way I can make any heads or tails of it.
I did not connect that he got it faxed to his phone, but that is indeed confusing.
Can you fax to an email?
Yeah.
Or do you have,
Well,
well, you have a fax number. You can only fax to another machine, right?
yeah, because faxing to an email would just be scanning.
Yeah, which isn't the same thing.
Not the same thing. So they could have scanned it to his email, which then he accessed on his phone. But they did use the term fax.
Yes, and it was in fact a fax machine. It wasn't like a fax or scanner.
Oh. I was like, normally it's like a printer, fax, or scanner, like all in one sort of
Uh-huh.
deal.
I had one growing up.
Yeah, I have to be honest, I think the number of times I've faxed things in my life is two. And so I don't really understand how a fax machine works, but I'm pretty positive you cannot fax it to someone's cell phone.
I am as well. Also, when he gets it on his phone, he shows the judge, and the judge barely glances at his phone and is like, "That is something to consider."
Yep.
Okay. I get it. You're pressed for time. You put too many details in. I already said this, but this is not a rally. This has never been a rally. Stop calling it a rally. It's a talent show.
Yep. Speaking of the talent show, in which we've already touched on this, but I have to say, Casey and Jesse have their dance number. Did you expect a dance movie? Because I gotta say, I don't know what I expected from this movie. Definitely not what we watched. But never, if you told me to like pull out of my brain what I thought this movie could be, dance movie, would have never came out. Would have never
No.
expected it.
I think that's the part that could have gone. I think that's like the part that we really, really, really didn't need. I
Yep.
get that it serves a little bit to Casey's character, but not even in a way that makes sense, really.
Nope.
Like, I think the environmental stuff works for the setting. I think that the family dynamics work, but the dancing felt like it was from a different movie.
Yep.
It was really confusing and jarring, and there
Jarring.
was so much of it.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, let me give you 10 seconds of dancing. No, like full on, like 2-minute choreographed dance scenes. And I was like, what am I watching with my eyeballs? Like, this makes no sense.
Why would they cast the winner of So You Think You Can Dance Canada in Vacation with Derek? This isn't Step Up. This isn't even Camp Rock. In a musical, I would have been okay with the dance numbers. Then you could have the
Yep.
plot and still have the dance numbers. This isn't a musical.
Nope. It indeed is not a musical. But you know, with the way this movie was, they could have thrown that in there too.
It would have made more sense if they had.
Fair. I don't know if it would have, but
No, I did not know this was going to be a dance movie. I honestly had zero expectations going into this movie, and I don't know if that was right or wrong, but yep, I definitely didn't get zero. Or did I? So much was going on, we mentioned this, that by the
mhm.
end I thought Nora was going to go into labor, because when she and George are leaving the cab or car and George is running to deliver the news about the injunction, Nora clutches her belly and is like, "Ow, George, hurry up." And I'm like, "Oh my god, is she going to birth?"
Literally, I was like, are we getting a water breaking moment? Like, I was waiting for George to be like, her water's broke. And then, I don't know, they were all going to rush to the hospital or some shit together, because the way the movie was going, I was like, it could go in this direction. I don't know.
In the like, we're getting too many things and not enough like stakes, we don't care enough vein. I needed to know more about like Roxy's dad and his origin story, because we learn early on that his dad, Roxy's grandpa, commissioned a study about the wetlands and how good they are for the environment. And also we learn that he cared a lot about the wetlands, enough that he would bring Roxy there a lot and show her the wetlands and the biodiversity. And she didn't know about the study, and he wants to develop this whole thing. And am I asking too much of this made for TV movie? Maybe, because he's just filling a trope of like this evil villain, but like, why? Why?
I don't think we're asking for too much. They clearly had a budget. I'm asking for you to give us a Save the Marsh movie. If that's what the movie is, then give us that. Give us the
Yeah.
background of why Roxy doesn't know about the report. Maybe there's an estranged relationship between Doug Dumbarton and his dad. Like, give us the full Save the Marsh movie. Make that the entire plot. Make it have stakes. Make us understand the ins and outs of why this is so important to save the marsh. But no, they didn't do that. But they could have.
Yeah, they're just like, there's this blue heron that comes here every year.
Yeah.
And there's like, I don't know, 4 species of birds that live here that don't live elsewhere or something. It's mentioned very briefly. And yeah, I could have used some more backstory on him, and also maybe Felicia and her connection to the land.
Yep.
What drove me absolutely nuts.
Yep.
What drove me bananas. I don't know if this stressed you out as much as it stressed me out. In the climax, they are starting the rally that is not a rally, the event, the benefit, as they call it at the last minute, and Felicia is about to sign away the property paper to Doug Dunbarton. And first of all, this is not how property sales go. It would be a months long process, but also she narrowly almost signs multiple times, and the kids are trying to stall, and then George swoops in and stops her. They could have just told her that George was on the way. They don't tell her, so she doesn't know to wait. Why didn't they tell her?
The only logic I could think of is that they thought that would upset her because she doesn't really like George, so them involving George would make her upset. It's the only reason that I could think that they were like, we need to just do this and not tell her because she'll stop us if we tell her.
How's she gonna stop him? George is already on the ball. Also, yeah, okay, maybe she could call and be like, no, don't bother, it's too late. But I don't feel like she would. And at this point, they've already stood up to her about not supporting the family. So they could be like, look, I know you don't like George, but he's doing this really cool thing, trying to help you. So you need to not sign those papers until he shows up. That's something I would have liked.
Mm-hmm.
I was very stressed and I was just like, tell her, just fucking tell her.
Mm-hmm. And on top of telling her, like, actually distract her, they all were like, we need a distraction. But I'm like, I don't know, trip her, put bubblegum on her shoe, do something.
Tell her there's like a issue with the power or something and like send her off on a mission that she can't complete.
Yes. Yes, like actually distract her.
Yeah. Not just have her go on stage for a speech for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And the things that I didn't need in this movie, Lizzie has a weird little love interest who says all of 3 words. I don't remember his name. He
Me
likes
neither.
birds. He doesn't like dancing. And they kiss on the dock. And I hated it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I hated it, but I did think it was not necessary.
I hated it because it felt not like Lizzie to just kiss a boy that said 3 words to her, and half of them were no.
Yeah, I guess I just am like, I don't know, if they've been here all summer or for a portion of the summer, which we're led to believe, maybe they've been like bird watching this whole time together. I don't know.
They've only been there a few days.
Oh, I guess to me in my brain, this took place over a summer.
Yeah, no, George and Nora, when they drop off the kids, they're like, we're only going to be in Montreal for a few days, and then we'll come back.
Oh, yeah, then we did not need a Lizzie love interest.
No, especially because there's no love or interest.
No, true.
There's just a kiss.
Yeah. I've already said this a million times, but I'm going to say it one last time, I guess, and probably once more. The first 50 minutes were really wild, and the last 40 didn't make up for it, but I do have to say, when we switched into the primary focus being Save the Marsh, I did enjoy it a little bit more. It felt better.
I agree. Once we got past Felicia's hatred of the Venturis and she like accepts them, I was like, oh, the movie has started.
Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, then this could have just been like a 2-episode special or an extra long, like, hour special. I didn't need a 90-minute movie.
Or it could have even been a greater overlap where she doesn't fully accept them until the end and they're working on the Marsh stuff from the beginning.
Yep.
Whereas the way that they did it, where there was a primary focus for half the movie that became a different focus for the second half, felt disconjointed.
Yep.
Disjointed? I don't know if those are words.
No, I liked that word. Disconjointed feels like a word that I would make up. And you would kind of look at me and then move on. So I like it. I'll take it.
And also, the latter half was better.
Yeah.
But I will say, because they make this big deal about this rally that's not a rally, and Edwin calling the news stations together, which is actually like the funniest detail of it all, is him calling people with a really deep voice to get them to come cover it. And it makes it seem like we're gonna like raise awareness for this issue, but
no,
George is the only one who actually does anything because he shows up with an injunction. So when he shows up with the injunction and they're like, okay, so now this talent show is just in celebration, I'm like, so actually none of this was necessary.
mm-hmm.
Like, all they had to do was call George, and they could have done that from the beginning and given him more than 12 hours.
Yeah. It wasn't nice. You're right.
No, they didn't need media coverage. They didn't need talent. They didn't need banners. They just needed to tell their dad.
And if it was an actual rally where they like went out and protested, and maybe then like media coverage came naturally, and then that's how George found out, and then George chose to get involved. Like, I don't know, there was other ways to develop this story in a way that would make sense.
That would make the event the kids spend the second half of the movie planning and putting on of consequence.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's of absolutely zero consequence, except I guess for that stupid getting cast as Broadway leads detail. Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
I liked that the credits showed bloopers because that's what the show did, and it was cute. But there were 2 bloopers that, like, actually made me kind of mad because there's one where Michael Cedar is taking off, like, very big puffy coats into his, like, normal shorts and a shirt and is clearly freezing, and Ashley's like, "It's snowing." Like, it just started snowing, and it reminded me of Allison Stoner talking about how when they filmed Camp Rock, and I think especially Camp Rock 2, they were filming it up there in, like, winter in summer clothes, and, like, stop freezing these kids, like, let
Mhm.
them I get it, you have to film in the off season, but it's snowing and you have them in tank tops and shorts? I felt so bad for them. And then the other one that made me mad was that
I
there was a
hated this one.
you okay, I was wondering if you caught this.
Mhm.
I like, rewound and watched it 2 or 3
I
times.
also watched it twice.
It's the end scene, I think, when Jesse and Casey kiss, and then the director yells, "Cut," and Nico says, "So should we keep kissing?" And Ashley turns away and is like, "No." And just like, why are you saying that?
Why are you saying that, and why are you including it in the bloopers as something that should be funny instead of it just
Yes.
being wildly inappropriate, which is what it was? I would like to believe that if this movie came out now, that would have never been included as a blooper, but to spin it as something that should be funny, it's like, no, this is not okay that he's saying that.
Yeah, I agree. If she had laughed at it, if he had said it in a way that somehow made her laugh because it was like an inside joke or something, like that's
Yes.
something I could see happening between like Kit Connor and Joe Locke, like in a blooper that they're actually laughing about it. That would be one thing. But because she just turns away and says no, and also knowing she has a long term boyfriend, knowing they yelled cut, like there's so like she's clearly not laughing about the situation, so why is it included as a funny moment?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I think it would be different if it was an actor that we knew she's had like a long relationship with or has worked with throughout the series, like
Her and Michael.
Sam or her and Michael, or even Truman, I would take like, an actor that like there is a relationship there, but this is like one movie, like they worked on a handful of scenes and stuff together. Like for him then to say it and her obvious response being like not comfortable and then to add it to the bloopers, I just feel like, yeah, someone who should have caught that and been like, let's remove that from the bloopers.
Yeah, and reprimand him.
Yeah. To finish us off, I have to say, I'm mad. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed that this movie was added to be our series end. They're like, we're going to give you 4 great seasons of a truly excellent show. If you listen to our wrap up episode, Amanda and I both said that this was one of our favorite shows, if not the favorite that we watched. We both enjoyed this show thoroughly, so, so, so much. And the last 2 episodes of season 4 were amazing. So well done, so fantastic, so great. Wrapped up things, but also kept you interested, added in some fun moments. Like they were amazingly well written and well acted ways to wrap up a TV show. To then give us this movie and present it as the wrap up, I refuse. I don't accept this movie as part of it. It's not okay.
And that's part of why I don't like movies based off TV series because they often don't impact the plot at all in actuality. Like if you think about the Wizards movie, the that the whole thing is the wizard tournament, but then that still happens in the show
Mm.
later. So like why it usually doesn't actually matter. I agree in that see, I'm not mad to be a mom about it. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed
Yeah.
because I had hoped for better, but I also hadn't hoped at all because I thought a movie called Vacation with Derek, I had absolutely no expectations as to what it would be like because the show is so grounded. I do think the movie is still pretty grounded as far as like it's not even Stevens movie crazy, right?
No, 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 no.
Whereas the show Even Stevens is pretty grounded and then the movie plot is like what the hell is going on?
Yeah, wackadoodle.
Yeah, this was like I could maybe see these characters doing it, I guess. But it
Yeah.
definitely was lacking a lot compared to the show, which, as you said, was one of our favorites. So
Yeah.
I don't consider this a series finale. I just consider it a spin-off TV movie.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Or I don't consider it at all. What I did tell you last night that you were like, "Are you sure about that?" was that I'm glad I watched it because I needed to know what it was about. Because, like I said, the whole idea of Vacation with Derek, just the name made me confused, made me not know what to expect. And having seen it, I now know that it was right to expect nothing. And I'm glad I know what it is, so I no longer have to wonder. I'm glad that we are covering this so that people can listen to us and not watch the movie. Although, watch it if you're curious.
Yeah, I agree. Watch it if you're curious, but also we're not recommending you watch this. Like,
No.
I think spending the same amount of time listening to our podcast is going to give you way more enjoyment than watching that movie will.
Yes. Yes. I did include this like Daisy scale-esque because that's what we did with all of the episodes we covered. I don't know that it needs to be a full scale. If we were saying a scale, I would probably give it like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree because there's a lot of like him pulling her away from Jesse and little like playful moments they have throughout the movie that definitely add to the Daisy scale. There's not like one big moment or anything, but there's a bunch of little things.
Yeah, they very clearly put in some fan service
Mhm.
into the writing of this movie. So there aren't as many moments like in the show, like the stepsister, same thing, yeah, right moment, like where it's actually a tense dialogue or something that could be implied in their facial expressions. It's more like a casual physical flirting comedically that happens in moments because they also both have love interests. So just to shout out some moments, like they of course comedically end up having to drive to the lodge together. George's excuse for this is Casey's the only one that could ride with him and make sure he actually goes to the correct place. Then there's a scene where they're both in a canoe and decide after already being out in the lake that they should switch spots, and so they have to be very, very close together, switching spots in the
Like
canoe.
falling on top of each other.
Yeah, like bending over each other.
Yep.
Multiple dancing scenes. Derek
Mhm.
pulls Casey away to dance, not just when she's with Jesse, but also at the dinner table beforehand, like multiple times,
Mhm.
but also especially pulling her not after a kiss, but during a kiss.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
writers were really, yeah, this felt like
That
if it
one especially, I was like, he did not just physically pull her away from kissing Jesse.
like while kissing him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like Daisy was not written into the show, it was acted in, but it was written into this movie.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But it wasn't acted as much.
Mm-mm.
Quotes, we just have a few, and the first one is the moment that I said that I feel like I am Derek, is when he first meets Felicia. He's running through her lodge after Casey and is just destroying property and inconveniencing her guests, and then he falls on the ground, and she says, "This must be George's problem son." And without skipping a beat, he says, "And you must be Nora's problem mother."
Mm-hmm.
And if that ain't the kind of sassy shit I would have said back to someone.
She deserves it.
Yes, adults deserve to be humbled, and I say that as an adult. Another Felicia quote, she says, "Marty, your brothers are appalling, but I never meant to upset you." And I thought that that was appropriate, and I liked it, and it just showed that Marty really wins everyone over.
Yep. Marty's the true queen of this show. Always has been, always will be.
Even though she is also an agent of chaos who brought a snake to the dinner table.
Oh. Yes, but like her energy and just the way she approaches life is like a breath of fresh air that I think everyone like needs that. So it's like even if you're a curmudgeon like Felicia, you still love Marty.
Yes, I agree, and she's so innocent about everything.
Mm-hmm. She's like, it's just Mikey. It's my little friend.
A Lizzie quote that is very me is she when Edwin like doesn't want to be involved in the marsh. Lizzie says, "Edwin, are you okay with the death of this planet?" She's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Are you, Edwin? Are you?"
I feel like we shouldn't end on my quote, but it is the last one, so we're gonna have to.
I almost changed the order so that we didn't end on this quote.
But it is what it is. This is when Felicia it has agreed to sell the lodge, and they're all kind of feeling defeated. And they go, Marty, there's no secret weapon against money and power. And I watched this the day before the election, and I was like, ooh, the day before the election, this quote really hit hard. And then typing it up after knowing the election results, I was like, oof, like this quote. Too real. It's too real.
Derek says it, and then Edwin's like, but we do have a secret weapon against money and power, and it's George. But I wrote down in my notes, like, so true, Derek, actually. Like, that's one of the smartest things he's ever said.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brings us back to the same temperament with which we started this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Any other final thoughts?
My final thoughts are watch Life with Derek. You can skip Vacation with Derek, but it's kooky. I'm not going to say I enjoyed it, but it gave us a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And you know what? There's 31,000 views on that YouTube video. So if you have seen Life with or Vacation with Derek, I really want to know what your thoughts are. I really want to know.
Yeah, I would be curious to know too. Up next, a little teaser. We're going to kick off our holiday content, and we are doing a fun little holiday episode involving your favorite holiday film characters battling it out. So tune into that one. Also, go follow us on our social media, 90s Babies Nostalgia. Spell out the word 90s on YouTube and on Instagram, but on TikTok, use the numbers there. And give us a rate and review, comment, DM us. We love interacting with you all. And with that, we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Babies nostalgia.